Detroit is a top 5 team in the NFL right now. Not the NFC, Bert. I don't have my letters confused. The NFL. The Lions, to me, it is the Chiefs. It is in no order. I'm just saying the top 5 teams. It is the Chiefs. It is the Dolphins. It is the 49ers. I'm going to be a homer.
Say the Bills.
And say the Bills.
Yeah.
And then the Lions, man, somewhere in there, you know. And if you want to take the Bills out and you want to keep Miami there, or you want to argue another, you know, whatever.
I mean, if you want to toss the Eagles in there, I mean, sure, why not?
Oh, duh, yeah. Oh, so yeah, take out the Bills, Eagles. So yeah, Eagles.
I think those two could certainly be interchangeable, depending on obviously if the Bills lose to a bad team or not. But yeah, no, they came in and crushed it, and you know, and missing their top receiver too, might I add, with St. Brown. I mean, he out with an abdomen injury, questionable for going into week 6 now too. But man, everybody does their part. Josh Reynolds stepped up, Montgomery on the ground too, Jared Goff just gunslinging CDs left and right. And not to say that, you know, Carolina didn't put up a fight. Now, the one thing that does scare me about this, they are giving up a lot of points, but the good thing is you have a consistent offense to help battle that. And when you control possession as much as the Lions did too, there is a way around it. But should they want to go in the long run, they need to tighten up that defense just a little bit. But man, Dan Campbell has got it all figured out. And easily Detroit having the most famous musical artist of my generation, in Eminem. He was there at the game, you know, as he is always. I think he has like a suite there or something. But yeah,
I'm sure he has a permanent suite there. I mean, of course, you have to do it for Mom Spaghetti, and so I'm happy that Eminem showed up. Like that, like think about that, Detroit Lions, and I get it. He's a Detroit native, but to have somebody who doesn't step out like that, I get, you know, that means something, right? You know, it's on one hand, yes, Eminem's from Detroit. Obviously, it makes sense for him to be there, but the fact that Eminem doesn't step out much, regardless of if it's Detroit or not, the fact that he's there in the stands publicly means something about this team.
It's finally a football team they can certainly hang their hats on and be proud of, and why not? And this has been like we've said this before, from year 1 of Dan Campbell winning no game but the last game, and like building off that, and then the following year kind of being almost a 500 team, building off that. So like this has been a long time coming, but he's doing what he set out to do with this team. And man, nothing gets me going more than seeing this Detroit Lions team. I'm telling you.
And shout out, hold on, let me give air horns to Jared Goff, man. The guy took the Rams to the Super Bowl. All of a sudden, we could do it with anybody.
Yep.
You know, obviously they went on and grabbed Matt Stafford, and I get it. I guess it would, if you want to look at it like that, it was worth it to them.
Yeah.
But it's hard to not imagine if they would have just stayed the course and stayed through a little bit of the rough years, development years with Jared Goff, that they couldn't have somebody who could perennially keep them in the Super Bowl hunt, rather than Matt Stafford, who's a little bit long in the tooth, a little bit injury prone, whatever. Again, they got their ring out of it, so it's kind of hard to criticize the Rams. So I do understand.
Well, they mortgaged their future on it. Like that's the thing. Right. That was their time. They struck. They did what they said they were going to do. They were going to get all their guys there. They got the ring, and then afterwards, anything that happens afterwards, I don't think anybody is going to be mad about.
Right, but then you look at what Detroit's doing, you know, in a short order, building what I think is a legit Super Bowl contender, Bert. I do believe that the Lions have what it takes. Now they just got their speedy wide receiver, one of their first, Jamison Williams, back from suspension, from gambling, right? Not PEDs, not anything crazy, gambling. Which again, we'll get into this in a different show, but what me and Bert have actually been asking the NFL to do is have concrete suspensions for gambling, and now they've oddly done it in the middle of a season and affecting current suspensions, which is a little weird. But we didn't really talk about that last week when it happened. But as I kind of really sat down and thought about it, I was like, man, that's kind of, I mean, I'm glad that they have like a concrete thing now, but it's kind of weird that they did it in the middle of the season.
We have to get to a different, like in a different show, because they truly don't think about this shit before they just do it. They're just, because I mean, handing out suspensions before the season, and then be like, all right, now's the standard. It's like, come on, Like now you're messing with people's games and game checks.
Yeah, that's not great by the NFL. Not a great job by the NFL. But yeah, as far as Detroit goes, picked up this stat through the first 5 games of the season. Every opponent that the Lions have played against failed to reach 100 yards rushing. Their run defense is nasty. I just wanted to shout out defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. That is a stat that I don't know if it's sustainable again 5 games into the season, but those are the types of things that you can use to build the rest of your season, that if a team does end up winning a Super Bowl, you can say, yeah, like look how dominant the defense has been. That type is it's just hard to come by. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is a monster. He's the next great, if he's not already in that great defensive player category. They're the same way we talk about, Aaron Donald or Nick Bosa or TJ Watt. Aiden Hutchinson is fastly approaching that. I don't think he's there yet. I think he's knocking on the door, or at least he's walking up to the steps, but he's going to be there in the next couple years. He will be in that, one of those guys. So, shout out to the Detroit Lions. We didn't do most impressive, biggest disappointment this week, but Bert, goddamn Buffalo Bills. You sons of bitches. How do you take, as a coach who's in charge of everything?
Yeah.
Oh, so what do I call him? Save a stroke, Sean. McDumbass.
Nice. Yeah.
How do you take a red-eye flight 48 hours before a game where there's a 6-hour time difference? And then after the loss, Bert, say, yeah, maybe we'll have to reevaluate the travel process next time. Like, how the fuck do you not know, Sean McDummy? I mean, Bert, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again because I feel like I'm the only Bills fan with the balls to say it. We will not win as long as Save a Stroke Sean is in charge. I feel like I'm the only one that has the balls or the mental acuity to even say it out loud. We can't speak bad about Sean McDermott because the team's winning and he's brought us to the playoffs. And remember what we were 20 years ago? No, Sean McDermott purely is surviving on the greatness of Josh Allen. Yeah. Period. And we will never win as long as he is in charge.
So I don't think so. 48 hours before obviously may not be a lot of time to get acclimated. Here's what I'll say. Having done this trip before, 2 things. 1, it ain't that hard to get acclimated to London time. You know what you do? You sleep on the fucking plane. And when you wake up, guess what? It's morning time in London. Boom. Acclimated. That's point number 1, Jerm. Point number 2, they're professional athletes. This is their job. If you can't figure out how to get your body and mind right for the one game you play every single week, then something's off. Now, this could be, I'm not saying it's not a leadership thing. I'm not saying it's not a coaching thing. Obviously, if they had more time to adjust, it'd be better, and they're not rushing this through. But I think it was a cop-out to point at the fact that, maybe we're going to reevaluate our travel. You know what you should reevaluate? Taking opponents seriously. Because the only other loss you have on the calendar this year is a homeowner opener against the Jets, which Aaron Rodgers went out and your boys let up real quick. And when I say your boys, I'm talking about Sean McDermott. Like, I'm not talking about you, although it does affect you in itself. But like, if you can't finish the game through and through, and here's why, although this week's matchup against the Giants is truly going to be a bounce back game, but if they go in there and they lose this game, number 1, you'll never hear the end of it. I will ridicule you through and through.
Deservedly so.
But and number 2, like, this will just go to show that they continue to just stroll in thinking it's going to be an easy win and not get it done. Now, there was another revelation I hit this week, and it can kind of lead into the next huge disappointment or maybe reality check, depending on how you look at it. But the Bills are just the AFC version of the Cowboys. They are.
Oh my God.
You look at, and like, there's more talent at quarterback, arguably more talent at wide receiver. But this is what the boys do all the time. They show these signs of being a well-made team, and then they go in and against a good opponent, bad opponent, and they just completely shit the bed. And not to say that obviously the Niners weren't a heavily favored team going into this past weekend, but I mean, nobody thought that the Cowboys were a smack around team, which is what they were. So what are we doing here? In both situations, you have the Bills being up and down, you have your Cowboys being up and down, and obviously different teams, different problems. But for me, right now, Bills is just the AFC version of the Cowboys. That's all it is.
Oh my gosh, for it. You know what, Bert?
Liberal media.
I don't know why I played it. I don't know why I played it. It just seemed right. It just seemed right the way.
Yeah.
Why not? I don't know why I played it, but that's so okay. The problem with the Bills is that the letdown games or the bad games they happen too close to each other, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you have that game versus the Jets in week 1, and then all of a sudden you're dropping 40 points a game on people. And story of the Bills' life, they go in waves. It's like they lose to bad teams and they beat great teams, and then when it counts, they lose to the great teams and beat the bad teams. And the problem with, as a Bills fan overall, Bills fans talk themselves into the Bills beat up. When you go back and look at their season and their winning records and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, it's against a lot of bad teams, and we talk ourselves into thinking we're great. And then all of a sudden, when we go up against these good teams, whatever happens. The problem is now it's happening in reverse. We're winning the games we probably shouldn't win, i.e. the Miami game, right?
Yeah.
And then here we are losing to the damn Jags. Now, yes, the Jags were in London for 2 weeks. I don't know how fair that is. I
didn't like that scheduling too from the NFL. Like, you're really going to keep they're going to be the one team that plays 2 weeks in London, but everybody else is the fly-in. And I don't know, man.
Well, so the Jags are the unofficial. Like when the Jags were losing the Blake Bortles years when they started this London thing, the Jags were the team. It was like the joke, like why if we want to grow the NFL, why are we keep sending the Jags? And I think that became like London took that as, we're going to accept the Jags. They're our home team.
They're
right?
ours now. Yeah,
they're ours. So and yes, when you turn on the game, there's thousands of people wearing various jerseys. People show up in the teams they support. I like it. I do. But
yeah,
there's no debate that London is definitely a home field advantage for the Jags. I think it's literally tagged as a Jags home game. I
think you're right. Yeah.
And so I think to keep them there again, Sean McDermott, you knew that. Why get your team over there? I get that. Yes, you go to sleep, wake up, but I mean, scientific facts, it takes at least 48 hours for your body clock to acclimate to anything more than a 3-hour time difference. And here we are talking about, I remember when I used to travel out to the West Coast and things like that, even Mountain Time, when it was only 2 hours behind, it would throw me off, for the next day. And I don't sleep a lot, right? So it affects me. I know anytime it just affects me because one, I'm not used to sleeping in general, and then two, I'm older, right? That's just it takes just.
I just don't understand why wouldn't you I understand it's 48 hours, the 2-day thing. It could be enough time to get adjusted. But also, to your point, if you knew that the Jags are going to be out there, why not go out there midweek? Get maybe you couldn't secure a practice spot. I don't know. Nobody's using the field 24/7. So do what you have to do. Get a spot and do the walkthroughs there. Let everybody let them go, at least take a breath, see some sights and shit like that, and get ready for the game. To me, it's just absolutely crazy. A huge disappointment. Obviously, huge win for the Jags. Take nothing away from them, but looking at the Bills and their roster, it just seems like we're at least 2 or 3 times a year we're having these conversations, Jerm. And right now, this is the second one we're having this year. So maybe you're only good for one more, or hopefully no more. The Bills will go on to do great things in itself.
As a Bills fan, I'm really, honestly, I'm not that worried. We struggled and we still lost by only 5. We had a bunch of injuries out there.
Yeah, but Von Miller's first game back.
Von Miller's back. We saw, hey guys, Josh Norman's back. So
oh, great, yeah,
great, yeah. All I think about is that Derrick Henry stiff arm. Every time I think of Josh Norman, I think how Derrick Henry just threw him to the side like an unwanted baby on prom night.
Tossed him, yeah.
Terrible. So, as a Bills fan, I'm honestly, I'm not. The panic meter isn't really that high. We still have Josh Allen. We still have Stephon Diggs. At the end of the day, the things we've been doing well over the season, I am trusting that, continuing to run the ball. There was a lot of uncharacteristic things that the Bills did in that Jags game. Could it be the body clock? Maybe the players just weren't in sync. Could they have slept on the Jags? There could have been a number of things. The issue is you can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
Like, especially once the competition gets better, you can't have these slow starts. Not going for it on 3rd and short at all game when you have, if not the best, the second best athletic quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He's like 6'6" and 200 something pounds. Like if the brotherly shove is unstoppable, think about if the Bills did that. He's like twice the size of Jalen Hurts. And it'd have to work even more. And so I heard that they're trying to ban that.
They're trying to ban it because I guess the Giants tried to do it and 2 of their players ended up getting injured. I think if you don't run it right, it just puts players in the way of injury, and the NFL is bad, which is dumb. You would think just coaches would stop using it if it's injuring their guys, but here's the NFL again coming in to ruin something fun. Like get out of here.
I'm trying to figure out why you would ban it, but
to me it's crazy. Like why? Like we're not talking about anything nuts here. It's just a play. Like I don't know.
It reminds me of the Wildcat. Remember when Miami did the Wildcat all those years ago, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's unstoppable!" And then like the next year, everybody stopped it. So now they stopped doing it.
Like that's the thing. Like I don't know when they come out like, "Oh, something has to be done. It's unstoppable." It's like no, somebody stop it. Like or do it yourself. Like fight fire with fire. I'm sure you saw the Chiefs got bailed out yet again in another week in a non-pass interference call, and then on top of that, no helmet penalty too. And listen, Chiefs fans can sit here and argue till they're absolutely red in the face. Say what you want, they were gifted. That game, they were plain and simple. 2nd week in a row, the Jets should have won the week before. But I mean, overall, good game. Minnesota showed up. They showed up to play, and they were ready. But I do want to touch upon the Jets humbling Sean Payton, and not the Broncos. I mean, I don't think anybody's expecting much out of them right now. But I mean, you've got to remember, Broncos fans and even like everybody thought that Sean Payton was the second coming of Jesus and reviving their franchise. And needless to say, that we knew they had a lot of work to do, but. Man, the shots he was firing about Nathaniel Hackett and the job he did the year before, when he's now with a team basically on the same path that he was. And then, I mean, listen, the Jets came in. I think even at the end of the game, he was said, "Stay humble."
That was hilarious.
That was absolutely hilarious. And it's one of those things I like to see. I mean, look, the Jets will always be. This was a dumpster fire of a game. It's like who cares who wins? But at the end of the day, I don't care for Sean Payton because of his ego. And this year, he's had nothing to back it up on. He's had successful years in New Orleans when he was taking bounties out on guys and getting them hurt, or he had Drew Brees there to help pick up the slack. But you step away from the game a little bit, maybe coach some little league football, if you will, and Pop Warner, come back into a Broncos organization, and I mean, ain't doing shit.
Our guy Adam Lewis, NFL with AGL on Instagram, a notorious Saints fan, said he would welcome Sean Payton back with open arms. And I said, "God bless you, bud."
Yeah,
that's like, God bless you, pal. Hey, you're a Saints fan. You know more about that than I do, but I could never. I mean, there's that. He has turned that into a circus. I don't think the Broncos are as bad as advertised.
I mean, look, for all intent and purpose, Russell Wilson played a very decent game, right?
He's been playing good for most of the season.
He hasn't been turning over the ball. He's been pretty consistent. There are so many other problems wrong with that team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The only thing I do know is that Sean Payton's probably not going anywhere. But back with the Vikings and Chiefs, I do feel terrible for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Oh.
So the refs, the pass interference, the flag they picked up that would have probably put could have won the game really for the Vikings at that point.
Yeah. Well, it would have brought them within like what, a couple yards of was at least. Because I guess the PI would have happened in the end zone. So
they would have been on the one. And more chances are they would have scored. So they said the pass was uncatchable, which is why they picked up the flag. But I could probably argue, looking back on that play, that if he wasn't held up, he probably would have caught it. And so And then to go on, and the player who takes off his helmet, which should have been another flag and an automatic first down.
Automatic, yeah.
That I believe it's a 5-yard penalty.
Yep.
That and even, so maybe not on the goal line, but at least an automatic first down at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you get 4 other attempts.
Four other attempts here, a little bit closer. The refs tell the guy to put his helmet on before he gets flagged. Like, what is that? What is that? And so if you're in the anti, oh, the NFL's not against the Chiefs thing, or the NFL is scripted, if you're like pro that, then you have all the evidence, even more evidence that the NFL is helping the Chiefs out here.
It's not like he was fixing his helmet. It's not like something was wrong with it, and he's like, I'm like, no, he literally took it off to plead his case as to why it shouldn't be PI, and they pick up the flag on PI and don't even, give him the helmet. So it's, to me, it's just insane. And these calls tend to happen in larger plays that could make a difference. We're not saying it would have, but it could have. So I mean, look, the Chiefs are the most recent, dare I say, franchise in the NFL. So yeah, we're gonna hate. We're gonna hate all day long. We're tired of seeing it.
And guess what? Guess what, everybody? Guess what? We don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the last thing I want to get to with the NFL is I'm smelling what the Brock is cooking. Brock Purdy.
Yeah, dude.
Listen, I don't know if Brock Purdy is the next Tom Brady. I don't know, if he's just this next great thing. What I do know is, objectively, I am impressed, but he hasn't played a full season of NFL football yet, technically, right? So I am kind of reserving and pumping the brakes on my excitement, and I don't want to crown him. As you know, Bert, we like to get a 3-year sample size.
Yep.
He has to show us. And if you want to call this technically year 2, fine. It's trending in a good direction. I hope he makes it, or I hope he is what we think he is, because not only would it be a great story for him, it's just a great NFL story. And it would, to me, change things on how coaches and teams evaluate players. The last pick in the draft is somehow a 10-year franchise, Mr. Irrelevant, somehow a 10-year franchise quarterback, Super Bowl champion quarterback. Even if he gets one, that he is overpaid, even though I think he's already overpaid his draft position, right? His return on investment is a big phrase we like to use when we talk about busts or successes or failures in sports on this show, at least. His return on investment is, to me, already paid for. The fact that he was able to take over the franchise. But if he delivers a Super Bowl to San Francisco, who already has 6 Super Bowls, and so 5 or 6 somewhere in there.
I want to say 6.
Oh, so
they're like right up there with Pittsburgh, I think. Let me just fucking Google it. We'll see.
Yeah, and so a guy who just slips through the cracks, literally slipped through the cracks, right? To be the last guy picked in the draft, to have his number called, and in this case, it's number 13. And in my head, Bert, that was what happened when Shanahan had to get him into the game. Probably had no idea who the hell Brock Purdy was. He was like, hey, who's 13? 13, get on out there. Jimmy G's hurt. How many games do you think it took Shanahan to realize who Brock Purdy was? 2, 3? Like, shit.
At least 2 or 3.
He was like, oh, shit. I might want to learn this guy's name. He's actually pretty damn good. So the Niners are overwhelmingly the best team to me in the NFL. A lot of that. And again, you want to sit there and talk about system? Fine. If you want to call Brock Purdy working within the system, he's doing it greatly. He's working for them. And Christian McCaffrey's awesome. That defense is awesome. They haven't really gotten Deebo Samuel going yet. And so
which is pissing me off, because I drafted him in all of my leagues.
Yeah.
But when you have the versatility and you want to use everybody else, I mean, feel free to do what's best for the team. And look, I'll take the system argument. I'll absolutely do that. But at the same point, he still has to throw the ball, and he's got to throw it accurately. And he's been the most accurate quarterback through the first 5 weeks of football that we've seen. So you can't say enough good things about Brock Purdy. Although Sam Darnold did go 1 for 1 for 1 yard. So I mean,
there you go.
Yeah,
okay.
All San Fran quarterbacks, high completion rate.
100%.
Yep.
So the 49ers looking awesome.
And George Kittle, he's back. I mean, he's one of those guys. I mean, look, if for fantasy owners out there, He's not boom or bust, but he is. I mean, he's consistent and then he's boom. And I mean, those consistent weeks, a little bit on, I'll say the quieter side, not going to get you the big points. But this week, man, 3 touchdowns, 67 yards. I mean, that's something you love to see. And yeah, they were spreading the love, even rushing too. Man, it was insane.
So I did want to I had one more thing written down here. Only because I live in North Carolina, Bert, surrounded by Panthers fans at work. And we watched that Panthers game, and I couldn't help but laugh at my captain and all the other guys I work with to sit there and watch Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And then in the same game or in the same Sunday, have to watch what CJ Stroud is doing in Houston.
Yep.
And to look at like what Bryce Young is not doing is all that the Panthers did to get Bryce Young. And you look at what the Texans and CJ Stroud, and I want to give credit to Coach D'Amico Ryans, who we were really big fans of getting that job in Houston, is doing for them. You have to be fuming as a Panthers fan, watching how great CJ Stroud is and having to look at the trash that Bryce Young is producing. And listen, I get it. The Panthers aren't good, but you're drafted number 1 overall. You're drafted and you're put in that position to overcome all that nonsense. I don't know. I don't know if yes, maybe rushing to judgment. I don't know if Bryce Young's ever is going to be better than CJ Stroud, or what CJ Stroud is better than Bryce Young, or if CJ Stroud would be doing this on the Panthers. I don't know. I'm not a psychic, but what I do know is that the Texans were worse than the Panthers last year, and now that they're better than the Panthers this year. And that's 95% because CJ Stroud. And that's all I know. Just watching it. So take that for what you will.
I don't think completely unfair to say. I think, but their game, look, if you look at their stats, they had very similar numbers. Bryce Young just throwing 2 more interceptions than CJ Stroud in itself. To me, could they be interchangeable? They could. I mean, you just spoke about sample size. I'll wait and see, right? Now, and look, no one's saying Houston's going to the Super Bowl. They're 2-3, but they're far better than a losing record with 0-5 for Carolina. But to your point, in doing everything they did for Bryce Young, I think in today's NFL, it is, to use what I just said about George Kittle, it is a boomer bust. And I think the leash on new quarterbacks, because we have the ones like the Purdy's, the Mahomes, who were able to jump right in it and really come into their own and be that franchise guy. I think there are a lot of other franchises that want that. And they get frustrated when the wheels keep spinning for year 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 for my New York Giants. But what are you going to do? But so even 5 games in, like looking at between Stroud and Young, there should be question marks. If you're moving all of that to get this guy and he's supposed to be your guy and he's showing right now, I mean, that's either it's a talent issue or a coaching issue. And I mean, obviously through the next couple of years is when they're going to figure that out. But I mean, we don't have time here in the NFL. Like, it is now or never the way you position your teams.